To understand the concept of the fertility wheel, it helps to look at this through the perspective of fertility and survival. Each animal or symbol must be in their exact position to communicate all of the important messages. For purposes of clarity and brevity, this presentation is relatively basic, but I can and do go into more detail in my other videos found here at fertilitywheel.com. Let's first look at how to use the wheel, the reasons for each animal or symbol placement. Once we acknowledge that each animal must be in their spot in the correct month, then we'll discuss precession and the possible age of the original time of this creation. For purposes of this presentation, and to be clear, the more commonly known zodiac will be referred to as the zodiac, and the concept I am presenting here is referred to as the fertility wheel. The foundation of the fertility concept. The first and foundational symbols are the woman and the newborns, 9 months after the sign of the woman demonstrating human fertility. That's our first clue to this being a fertility wheel. The first step in understanding and calibrating the fertility wheel is to align it with the equinoxes and solstices. While there are some important changes, the overall order of the symbols has not changed. It's the meaning behind each one that creates the change. Calibration. Here's what you need to do to calibrate. Locate the line on the wheel between the centaur and the goatfish on the zodiac, or, if you are using the fertility wheel, between the man riding a horse and a lizard, the fish of the desert. This delineation between the horse and the lizard is the summer solstice. The delineation between the newborns and the crab represents the winter solstice. Now the equinoxes are on either side of the horizontal line through the center of the wheel. Now you have your calibration points. To create a perpetual farmer's almanac, it's crucial to position all the animals on the wheel accurately. By following these steps and aligning the wheel correctly, you can effectively utilize it as a tool for understanding agricultural and seasonal events in the Fertile Crescent. And when regionally calibrated, it can be used nearly everywhere. Once you align the horse to the month before the summer solstice, your alignment is complete. Horses, known as long-day breeders, have a peak mating period when the days have 14 hours of light in June. If you do not have a horse, you can find the sheep and align them to its natural mating time known as the rut. They are known as short-day breeders, and their peak mating times start just after the autumn equinox. All of the land animals are in their mating season. The symbols, all together, tell a story, and the messages are woven together through the course of the 12 months. For example, the symbol of the woman and the symbol of the newborns tell a story, even though they do not sit next to each other on the wheel. The conception and birth have a 9-month difference, the gestational period. Seasonal breeders. I knew seasonal breeders and their basic patterns from living near farmland. If you research seasonal breeding examples on the internet, you'll find animals such as cows, horses, lizards, goats, sheep, cats, dogs, and pigs. Interestingly, many of these animals are also represented in the zodiac. These creatures are indicative of seasonal breeders, symbolizing farm animals. If each of these animals' peak mating period is represented by the month they are shown, that would not only be amazing, but it would make a lot of sense. Seasonal breeders mate at certain times of the year to give birth, usually in spring. Horses mate in summer, goats and sheep mate in autumn. Lions' birth peaks have been observed in Kruger, February-April, and Serengeti, March-July, subtracting the 110-day gestation period, and that is why the lion is positioned in January through February. All of these animals mate at different times. They need to be in their correct month, not in symbolic order. I will try to group the symbols together to make sense. Now that you might see the woman's fertility and the land animal's fertility, let's talk about the land's fertility. Agricultural messages. To comprehend the agricultural aspect of this concept, it's beneficial to refer to the crop calendars of agricultural areas of the Fertile Crescent with spring and winter wheat. I like using Turkey's crop calendar, but feel free to check out the United States crop calendar. Now, all animals' symbols on the wheel are aligned correctly, Both cattle symbols represent the processes of tilling the soil and planting wheat. On the fertility wheel, the scales are replaced by an image of a cow to make it a true fertility wheel. However, if you prefer to retain the scales to represent the equinoxes, that's also a valid choice. I like the scales representing the equinoxes to show equality in the light and darkness in the sky. These pictograms provide insights into the ideal times for farming activities, including planting and harvesting wheat. While this approach may not apply universally, it works effectively within specific latitudes. While you can explore calendars for other regions, focusing on these examples will illustrate the point more clearly. For wheat planting, the optimal times fall between March and April, as well as from October to November when the ground becomes too hard to cultivate. Cattle symbols at both places convey the message of agricultural fertility. March is the optimal time to fertilize the land, plant wheat, and is the peak of cattle mating, making this the perfect position for the cow symbol and appropriately replacing the scales. Wheat and other grains are planted during this exact time of the year, and cattle mate at this time. This is also a perfect representation of this month. October through November is a very important time to plant crops. There is a small window of opportunity, and you must tend to the land. Cattle must be represented here. October through November would be a perfect representation for planting, and that is a secondary time to mate cattle if they did not get pregnant in spring. The man on the horse represents the time to harvest. Barley and wheat are harvested in the summer. In the Fertile Crescent, it is aligned with wheat, but you can use it in the USA for barley. Keeping in mind, this is a guide and will differ regionally as climates and soil can vary greatly. There will always be some small differences, but this is a great guide and a simple pictogram to easily explain when to plant your crops and breed your animals, and to convey that message over time, through generations, and without written or spoken language. It was when I realized the cattle symbols align with the planting of the wheat and barley, the horse represented the time of the harvest, and that they were both in their peak mating season, that I realized the Zodiac or the Fertility Wheel could have multiple messages if you understood animals, wheat, the weather, and more. The internet gives us access to all of that information and more. In Northern California, most ranchers mate their cattle in March and April. If you live in areas of snow or harsh winter conditions, you may only be able to mate your cattle right before winter for late summer births. Both cattle symbols are strategically positioned for both planting wheat and aligning with their respective mating times, which can vary depending on specific conditions and circumstances. This correlation began to emerge, aligning not only with the planting and harvesting of wheat, but also with the peak mating periods of these common farm animals. Assigning the correct months to each animal revealed this alignment with their primary mating seasons and the timing of sowing and reaping wheat. Water brings life. Water brings fertility to the land. Water is life. Every living thing needs water. Water is needed to grow everything. Even a flash flood brings the land back to life to get ready for the autumn planting of the crops. The rains were so important at that time that Egypt still celebrates August 15th as the annual celebration of the flooding of the Nile. It was common to have floods in August in the Fertile Crescent. The dangers. Amazingly, it also shows the scorpion at its most common mating time, but is not a seasonal breeder. With more scorpions being active at this time, the danger increases to your family and livestock. The possible flash floods, the scorpion and the lion represent some of the largest dangers of the area at that time. Additional sources of food. Animals of the sea are depicted during prime seasons to catch them. Fish were shown during the late summer fishing season, one of the peak times for fishing and a great time to stock up and salt or smoke as many fish as you can before the winter famine season. Fish parts help fertilize the land. If your harvest or fishing is not enough to keep you alive, crabs are shown at their primary season, when they are large and easy to catch when little or no other food is available during the famine season. They will also help you fertilize the land. The goat fish. What if you had to eat but could not find or pay for meat? In the desert, caught for millennia for their meat and medical properties, you will find the spiny-tailed iguana. They are long-day breeders and are still caught today. They mate during July and are known as the fish of the desert, but old zodiacs will call this symbol the goatfish. The name goatfish and the description of the fish of the desert are unique. In ancient times in the Fertile Crescent, this would have been a valuable tool, especially if people had a problem communicating. I will now recap the symbols and their basic meaning. That is how to use the guide or tool to know the length of a woman's pregnancy. These symbols are the woman and newborn twins. It shows the best time to use cattle to plow the fields, fertilize the land, and plant wheat. It shows the peak mating times of the seasonal breeders in the area: cows, horses, lizards, sheep, and cats, large and small. It shows you the peak mating times for common farm animals to multiply and to be used for meat, milk, skins, and manure to fertilize the fields. It shows the scorpion. The 3 most deadly scorpions are found in that area, with 22 venomous scorpions that can harm or kill people and livestock. It shows the man at the season to begin to harvest wheat and barley. It shows an additional summer food source, spiny-tailed lizards, which have been used as food and as medicine for hundreds of years and are still used for both today. It shows uncontrolled water as the most common time for a flash flood, a hope that water fertilizes the land. Egypt celebrates the flood every August 15th. It shows one of the best times for fishing. Fishing at this time and smoking or salting them may keep you alive in winter. Fish parts make a great fertilizer for the land. It shows the primary season of all crab species, an additional food source for the winter. They also make great fertilizer. It shows the 3 deadliest possible dangers in that area: lions, scorpions, both of which are nocturnal creatures, and potential flash floods. That is amazing with only 12 symbols. Precession. I made a fascinating discovery. I explored the ancient art of reading and interpreting the stars, a practice where the ancients patiently awaited the emergence of the first 3 stars in the night sky. The constellation appearing on the eastern horizon at that moment was deemed highly significant. Contemplating a hypothetical scenario, I asked myself, if I could observe the stars perfectly from a location with a longitude of 110 degrees, how far back in time would we have to go for the ancients in Mesopotamia, positioned at negative 45 degrees longitude, to witness these same stars on their horizon? The answer lay in simple addition, combining 110 degrees, my longitude, with 45 degrees, Mesopotamia, resulting in a remarkable 155-degree difference. Taking into account that the stars gradually shift by 1 degree every 71.6 years, I realized it would have been more than 10,000 years in the past when the ancients could have practiced star interpretation and had the correct constellation on the horizon at the correct time of year. Following this precise astronomical equation, the ancients must have gleaned their celestial guidance from the stars an exceedingly long time ago. What do you think? Within their message lay a timeless truth. As above, so below, the stars shall be your guide, and countless other such quotes. The sun, too, shall illuminate your journey in harmonizing with the rhythms of nature. I am confident that these symbols have existed to steer us in the right direction, and I am grateful to have unraveled their meaning. For longer videos on this subject that are actually different and to watch my other videos, with this theory I have created my own astrology and more. FertilityWheel.com and the Fertility Wheel channel on YouTube. Thank you for your time. My name is Stephen David Manning.